Hello, and welcome to Under 1000. My name's Thomas Flower, and each episode I'll read you a piece of super short fiction. All of the stories are 1000 words or less. Today, I'll be reading Ghosts Stories. Hey, are you going to be in or around Glasgow on the 5th of December? I'm hosting a queer flash fiction open mic night at Category as Books from 7pm. Check out the Under 1000 Facebook page for more details, and come join us if you can. It should be a lot of fun. Please be aware that this episode deals with themes of death, so if that's likely to upset you or anyone that you're with, then you might want to skip this one. Gabriel was confused, unsure if the choice he was about to make was the right or wrong one. All he knew was that Martin was dying, and that this might be the only way for him to see the man he loved after his body finally gave out. It was too late now to ask what Martin wanted, to see if he would allow his immortal soul to be held down and bound to this earth forevermore. Gabriel knew that his desire was probably selfish, but regardless, he pulled a quill from his pot and began frantically scribbling a new tale on the parchment before him. People in these parts all knew of the haunted stories. Most folks would swear to having heard a few in their time, and witnessed the bizarre spectacle of the unliving. A precious few jesters and bards, it was said, were able to capture the very essence of the living so well that a piece of their souls would be contained in the story. After the passing of the person in question, whenever the story was shared and retold, the spirit which lingered on within it would reappear, sitting to listen to the tale of themselves, or else whisper in the ears of the audience about the veracity of what was being told. Gabriel did not know himself to be such a high-level bard as that, to create a macabre miracle out of a folk tale, but he hoped for his own sake that he might be able to rise to the challenge. Of course it had a cruelty to it, this trick of words and souls. Those caught and bound in a story were said to be unable to ever leave the mortal realm. Barred from heaven, they instead roamed the lands only to be summoned by the telling of their story. For those poor souls whose stories eventually fell out of favour, they would wander fruitlessly forevermore, wishing passionately that someone would remember them. Remembrance was the very lifeblood of these ghostly creatures, and those who were forgotten were rumoured to become vengeful poltergeists and other malevolent spirits. Gabriel didn't mean to turn the man he loved into some poor lost soul, of course. I must construct a story so fantastical that it will be endlessly retold forevermore, he thought self-critically, wondering if he would be truly up to the task. He was comforted to know that he would be able to see and hear Martin again through the mere uttering of a few simple words. But he knew that after his own soul departed the world of mortals, there would be no one left to look out for this beautiful man's best interests. The only way was to make them care, to make them want to tell the tales about Martin of Snowbush late into the night for years to come. He scratched away fervently, hoping only that his masterpiece would be complete before the poor man's life was finally over. So ends the story of Martin of Snowbush, and the mysterious author who historians now largely recognise as being male. I hope that this tale will help us all to consider representations of LGBT identity in historical folklore. We'll now take a short break and reconvene for a panel discussion on the topic in about 15 minutes. Martin felt confused, a little groggy. Where had he been summoned to now? Looking around, he saw an anonymously modern hotel setting, one clearly being repurposed for a convention of some kind. He'd got quite used to conventions over time. While banquet halls and campfires were the spots he used to materialize in most commonly in days of yore, now it was usually convention centres, history museums, and meetings of various historical societies. After so long wandering this earth, there was little left to surprise or confuse him. Wandering through the crowd, he wondered if even a single one would be able to see him. In the olden days, it was common for whole rooms to be filled with shock or delight at his sudden appearance in their midst. As time had passed, however, the sight had gone from something of common knowledge and practice to a thing only a few would even admit to having. Not forgotten, but never really seen, he summarized to himself, chuckling bitterly at the strange hand fate had dealt him. Still, no point in begrudging it. He might as well enjoy his time here before he was rudely dismissed or else summoned to another location. Sitting in one of the now empty seats, he studied the slides on the board, trying half-interestedly to determine what kind of place he had been dragged to. If only Gabriel had known, all those years ago, that this would be the outcome, would he still have made the choices he did? Martin knew from their time together after his death that Gabriel was deeply concerned about his spirit being corrupted from being forgotten, but it was unlikely he could have foreseen this instead. Perhaps being half-remembered, misremembered, was worse than simply being left to fade into obscurity. Martin could not pass on, could not leave this world, and yet he no longer had a purpose to being here. He was simply a story for these people, to be analysed, dissected, interpreted, and discussed. They had taken the life out of his death. He felt himself slipping away, being pulled on to the next destination. The convention-goers must be forgetting his tale already, or else someone new was telling the story more fervently somewhere else in the world. Either way, he could feel himself about to reappear once again. Silently, to the concern of nobody, he waved his goodbyes and slipped through the void into the next location. This was the true final gift given to him by the man he loved. An afterlife of endless, restless movement. Thank you for listening to Under 1000. I'm your host, Thomas Flower. To follow the show online, look for Under 1000 Pod on Twitter or Facebook. If you'd like to support the show on Patreon, go to patreon.com/under1000pod, where you can sign up to read each month's stories in advance, as well as to have a thank you be read during these credits. The theme music is an instrumental version of In Between Days by Nick Tate and the Sharks. To hear the full song and more from the same EP, go to Nick Tate, NICTATE, and thesharks.bandcamp.com, or search for them on your favourite streaming platform. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and that you'll join me again next time for some more super short fiction.